The Americans call him Ivan Pavlov, and I call him Ivan Petrovich Pavlov. This book, A Russian Life and Sciences by Daniel P. Todes, who is a professor emeritus in the Department of the History of Medicine at Johns Hopkins, um, is one of the best books that I've read. To understand the entireness and grand total of his body of work would mean scrutiny and interpretation of not just Russian language documents but also technical jargon in Russian, a deep understanding of the political climate at the time when he was alive, which means an understanding of everything that happened under Tsar Nicholas I's rule up until Stalin. Since all these things dictated what was published, how it was published, who translated it, and the motives behind those translations. This book won an award from the History of Science Society, and I picked it up because I loved to have before me complexities and contexts of a person of science authored by a perfectionist who spent 25 years researching and writing, and much of this time studying the original archival material, including personal correspondences between Pavlov and his future wife, scholars, Communist Party leaders, unpublished memoirs by his wife, his co workers, his lover, and a treasure trove of secret police surveillance reports that had previously been misfiled. It was as if I had stumbled upon a vast archaeological hoard of treasure, much like Tutankhamun's tomb. The book is over 800 pages long and has an extensive appendix of Pavlov's lexicon, his notes, and bibliography. Any serious psychologist, but especially every professor of psychology, must read this book, else not teach anything related to Pavlov. What does the book do? It will enlighten you about many errors in the knowledge that has been passed on to us through texts. So, for instance, Toad says that we understand that Ivan Pavlov never trained a dog to salivate to the sound of a bell. Chapter 21 of the book gives you 15 pages of details on how, as a result of botched up translations, we never get to learn that the use of the bell was incompatible with his basic methodology. And in fact, what he used most was often the metronome. Textbooks have also completely missed out on the purpose and direction of his research, and what we have come to understand as conditioned stimulus or conditioned reflex is in fact not the word that was used by him in Russian. He used the word conditional, and he believed that his fundamental contribution to science was the conversion of the conditional response into reliable experimental phenomena which can be subjected to systematic investigation and used as an objective physiological method to study the psychology of animals. Pavlov's use of the word objective was not in the manner that American behaviorists used it at all. He never doubted the existence of subjective psyche. He never discounted the importance of the subjective realm. He used the word objective to signify quantifiable data in the form of saliva drops and the manner in which this physiological process could tell us something about internal subjective psychic phenomena. Now, the word unconditional was used because food elicited salivation regardless of conditions, or in his words, food had an inborn purposive business relation to salivation. So, saliva prepared the food for passage down the esophagus and protected the mouth against possible damage by the acid. Whereas Pavlov was interested in behavior, he was not a behaviorist, and you get to understand this, especially the importance that he placed on subjective phenomena when you read this book. In it, he said, and I quote, "It would be stupid to reject the subjective world, and it clearly exists, of course." In the words of the author, these misconceptions have all become central to Pavlovian mythology and are simply false. Reading this book was an out of body experience for me, and I was visibly upset to know some aspects of Pavlov's personality that I would much rather have been in denial about. But it also made him much more human and more accessible to me, which is why my entire family knew when he had died in the book. I had lived and breathed him for so long that I was filled with grief and an emptiness when suddenly I came to the end of the book. Very rarely do I come across works that are both science and art. Not often can a scholar be so meticulous and practice a form of self discipline and almost austere spiritual meditation to do just the one thing and do it so well that it does full justice to a towering personality. This biography and what Daniel Todes has done is all of that and more. I don't just recommend it, I think it should be compulsory reading for all senior psychologists.